Welcome to another episode of the Wrong Advice Podcast. I'm your host, John Pachuto, and I'm pleased to have my good buddy, Tyler James, Minnesota-based photographer, aka Firsthand Account, with me today. What's going on, Tyler? How you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing, John?
I'm doing good, man. Really happy to get you on the podcast today. So for the listeners, why don't you do a little quick intro, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Tyler James. I'm 29. Today actually is my birthday.
I know. Happy
Uh,
birthday.
Thanks, man. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I guess I'm from Minnesota primarily. I've lived in a few different cities in Minnesota, kind of all over the place, but I am a photographer. I do own a video production company as well called Benjo Media in Minneapolis, and we do like videos and photos and social media stuff for like small businesses, which I really like doing. But my primary um, thing that I do is photography, and yeah, I take photos of everything. I pretty much done everything under the sun, but I've kind of been focusing lately on more, I guess, like fine art or like mundane scenes and things like that. But yeah, it's a little bit about me, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, so Tyler and I kind of came into each other's orbit. I think I kind of stumbled across your YouTube probably like 2 or 3 years ago. You posted a video about the Leica Q, which is, I think, your still primary camera that you use.
Yeah, definitely. Everything 99.9% like a Q since 2015.
Nice. Love that. Yeah, I was looking into buying one, so I was like looking up every review online, found your YouTube, thought your videos were super informative and useful. So I subscribed, headed on over to your Instagram. You've created a really, really awesome community of people and fostering of everyone's kind of, skills and passions towards photography. And, you followed a bunch of people back one day. I was one of those people. We started talking and just a cool dude and obviously really cool to connect with you on the podcast. How did you get into photography and like how long have you been doing it?
So I guess like originally I got into photography when I was 13. I begged my parents to buy me a DSLR, and I really wanted to start taking photos. I had taken a photography class at my school with a science teacher there that actually passed away years ago. So rest in peace. His name was Jake Miller. But he had a basically like a kind of like a not a summer course, but it was towards the end of the year, and it was meant for like he was a high school teacher, so I didn't actually ever have him as a teacher, but he did this photography course through the school as like kind of like a summer thing that kids could do. So I took that course with him. I think I used um, a Nikon like D32 or not D3200. I don't know what Nikon it was back then, but some digital Nikon that the school had like 12 copies of that they could rent out to us. And so we got to like get the camera cart and get a bunch of cameras. We made prints and we framed the prints in like black aluminum frames. We got professional matting and we matted them ourselves and learned how to like tape it. And yeah, it was really a cool process. And so after that, I begged my parents to get me a Rebel XTI with an 18 to 55 millimeter kit lens on it. I also got a 70 to not no, it was a 75 to 300 f4 to 5.6, that like standard zoom lens. I picked that up with the kit lens at the time because he was like, "You're gonna want a super zoom," because I bought it from a store called National Camera in Minnesota that's been here for a really long time, and all the people that sell cameras there are like really, really kind of veteran or older photographer guys. So lots of bird photographers in that room. So that's why he was like, "Yo, you are gonna want the 75 to 300 when, especially on a crop sensor camera, when you start shooting birds." I never shot birds ever. So I never used that lens, but I still have that lens to this day, which is pretty awesome. So sometimes I throw it on my 5D Mark III and just shoot photos that I'll never post on my Instagram, and I just kind of play around with it. But yeah, I got that camera. They told me to read the manual, to memorize it, and to shoot in manual. And so I shot in manual. I read the manual 3 times. I tried to remember everything I could. I took notes on it. And I tried to learn every setting. And then I started just shooting photos of flowers, sunsets, and my family, kind of like, what everybody shoots back in the day. I also shot photos of like water fountains at like 1/2000th of a second because I thought that was so cool. You could like freeze water in motion.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of those kinds of photos and stuff, and then I took long exposures of water too to just fog them out. And yeah, so I shot manual and shot that camera for a couple years, and then I ended up putting it down. And then I would say maybe like 6 years ago, same situation. I asked my parents if I could get a camera again, and I wanted to get back into photography. So I got a Canon 70D and started taking photos of my friends and like sunsets. And I was living in Florida at the time, and just like, beautiful landscape scenes and stuff like that. And then my buddies, like I haven't had a lot of self-confidence in my life, and my parents haven't really pushed me to be who I am. They've kind of pushed me to be somebody else. So they didn't really like make me feel good about like creating art, things that didn't make money. And so um, my friends in Florida, they were the first ones to kind of be like, "Hey, dude, you really are good, and like you could do this as like a living, and like you could actually like do this. Like I think you're really, really good." And I was like, "What?" And I like unfortunately I was 21 or 22 at the time. That was the first time in my life that I heard somebody say like your artwork is good and you should keep doing this. And so it was an eye-opening experience, I guess. And so I basically moved back home, moved back in with my parents, which was a whole another set of like, can of worms. But I went to the Minneapolis College of Art and Design and started basically taking photography a lot more serious. And that's kind of when that was like 2015, I want to say. So that's kind of when I started really getting into it. And then, yeah, that's pretty much, one thing led to the next, and now I'm here.
That's awesome, man. I mean, outside looking in, obviously, it is a bit surprising to hear someone, struggle with confidence in their art, especially considering I definitely count you as one of my inspirations from a photography perspective, because it doesn't come off that way. I mean, obviously, number one, you create beautiful images, and
Thanks, man.
you have
I
a
appreciate it.
really easygoing nature about yourself on YouTube and stuff. So, I think that's kind of almost nice to hear, especially for someone like me. I'm just starting out. I'm maybe 3 or 4 years into my photography. But yeah, I think we can all kind of struggle with the social media aspect of the industry and followers and that whole 9 yards. So like having someone who's established like yourself kind of be able to be relatable in that confidence area is to me surprising, but also super super relatable. Because obviously I've been there myself. I've seen over time, like just in like the last couple of years that I followed you, obviously your style, your aesthetic is kind of morphed a little bit more into those like night cityscapes, kind of landscapey photos, which are just so like eerily beautiful and quiet and calming and so many other adjectives to describe how like just beautiful these pictures are. But again, I came to you when you were primarily a street photographer. So how do you think your personal style kind of morphed over the last couple of years to kind of graduate to this, new phase of your art?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess it's like a pretty long explanation, but I've definitely like taken a lot of photos for the purpose of trying to get a feature or trying to grow the page, right? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like I think that Instagram's a valuable tool, and knowing what people like and showing people what they like and using high contrast editing styles and shooting, beautiful sunset cityscapes, and like I have a lot of fun doing that, and a lot of my friends did that back in the day. So that was like my primary reason for doing it. But I always had it in the back of my head that this is like feature worthy, that this is something that could appeal to the masses because it's such a kind of generic image type thing. Not in a bad way, but so I kind of first started out taking photos like that I loved to take, and I had a lot of fun making, but you know, I tried to also make something that would get me like followers or get me features and likes and things like that. And so I did that for years, but I found street photography in that process of shooting a lot of urban cityscapes and stuff like that. And I guess what initially drew me to cityscapes was I had like very, very strict parents that would ground me a lot. Um, so, I had like a really harsh Asian mom who like I never was good at school. So anything below like a B, you're pretty much getting grounded for a week. So, I would get grounded 3 weeks in 1 week, like I just three different quizzes, I get like C minuses, and that would be the next 3 weeks. Like I can't leave the house, like I'm grounded and I can't do anything, right? So I was kind of locked away in my house a lot as a kid, and that's what initially drew me to cityscape photography. Is like I never in my life walked around downtown, like I had been downtown obviously, but we would like pull up to the valet, walk right into the restaurant. Like the valet would pull the car out, we'd walk right into the car, and I'd see a glimpse of it, but we'd never even walk like a whole block downtown.
Hmm.
So um, so that's, I guess, what initially drew me to like cityscape, and then through cityscape, I found street photography, just researching and looking at a lot of urban photography. You kind of stumble on street photography immediately because cities have a lot of people, and that's where a lot of street photography is made. Not all street photography, but most is made in these like kind of central downtown, like high density urban areas. So I found street photography through that, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I still shoot street photography to this day. I post it on my second account sometimes, but it's not, I guess, my primary work. And it took me years to realize like I'm not going to be the next Bruce Gilden. I'm just not, like
Most of us realize that.
yeah, like I love it, but it's so hard, right? And so when you get something that's so satisfying, but at the same time, like I have a lot of social anxiety, and like 90% of my street photography is taken from the hip, and I just kind of straighten the photo later, or sometimes I leave it wonky. And I've gotten better at hip shooting over the years and getting those verticals to be straight. But almost all my street photography is like from the hip, like I'm standing next to the person, I'm close, I'm 28 millimeter, but they don't know I'm taking a photo,
Yeah.
The camera's really silent, and there's like a subway going by that's masking the sound, and I'm using like different techniques to basically never let somebody know that I'm taking a photo of them. And that is a cool style, and I love that style, and I'm going to continue to do that. But almost like always, the like most of the time, that the strongest street photography I see is like they planned it. They waited
Hmm.
for the person to walk into the frame, and they had it. That composition, they were looking through the viewfinder
Yeah. Right.
to be able to see it. Like they were looking through the viewfinder, like and that immediately brings attention to you, or it gives you away, in a lot of situations. And so I'm a small, little, skinny Asian dude, and so I'm like trying to be invisible anyways. Like
Sure.
I'm usually invisible because I'm so like not a threat, and I'm like so like just skinny and small, and just like I'm very quiet when I'm in public. I'm not very loud. I don't play music. I never talk on the phone in public. Like, so I kind of just get in the subway and take my seat, and someone might glance at me, but after that they forget I'm even there because I'm just not a presence. And so I try to use that like ninja technique to shoot street photography. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess what like the main motivation that made me kind of change or switch away from street photography is realizing that like I love it and I'm going to keep doing it, but I don't think it's my strongest work, and I don't think it's something that I'm going to be that's going to be my thing, where people in 50 years are going to be like, oh, Tyler James is a street photographer. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Like I wanted that before, but now I don't want that. And I guess another thing that kind of led to me switching to this, like, I guess I call it like mundane scenes, is just like the, like, it's a combination of a lot of different things. So it's like I was always locked in my room. So there's this curiosity that I have as an adult, like I never got to explore as a kid. And
Hmm.
so like now I'm reliving that childhood of basically like when you used to ride your bike around the neighborhood and find weird, cool stuff. And like, oh my God, this fire hydrant, somebody hit it and it's just like water's pouring out. Like these random scenes that you would never see. Like it wouldn't even be on the news. It wouldn't be like, you wouldn't see it back then. There was no social media, so it's like you had to just go and see it.
Yep.
And so I guess like the mundane scenes is kind of like a combination of the fact that I was always grounded. I had a really bad home life as well. And so I try to like, I wanted to show the things that I've been through. And so I guess the more that I create, like, work, the more that I study like the masters in art history context and the art process and the fine art process and ideation methodologies and just all the different like subconscious and conscious processes that go into creation of any type of artwork, like from the ideation all the way to the final product, like learning more about those processes in terms of like the art history context has kind of led me to a different way of thinking about photography and thinking about creating work. And like I get a lot of inspiration from painters and from like yeah, basically painters. And so painters to me are some of the most emotional artists when it like painters and musicians, and they just pour their heart, like what their traumas, their
Hmm.
experiences, they use it, they channel it, and they release it, and it's this healing process to them. And so I had a really bad home life, like in combination with being trapped in my house. So not only was I trapped and grounded, I was always around like physical and emotional abuse and like like for just my whole life. Like every day there was something, whether it was physical or emotional. Like I I could count the days in my entire childhood that it was good and everything went good and everyone was happy and everyone was nice to Tyler and like um
That's
so
tough.
I guess yeah, man, it was yeah. I I'm grateful that I went through it because I know that it'll help me break the cycle and I won't pass this on.
I was going to
And
say, I mean, obviously, I'm familiar with the fact that you have a fairly long-term girlfriend. How do you think those kind of, trials as a child have impacted your relationship currently? Because you guys have, I think, been together for a while, and you seem super happy. So, um,
yeah.
obviously, it's overcoming a bit of trauma, and you seem, a lot of this is surprising to me because you come off as supremely confident, and I guess that's from a talent level when you look at someone's work and you
Yeah.
think about all the time and effort and energy that goes into it. You think this person must be the most comfortable person in their skin because they're creating this beauty. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of that. Like I am comfortable in my skin now, so I definitely do feel that way. But it took a lot of therapy and a lot of like introspection and a lot of like working on myself and things like that to get to a point where I felt happy with it. And so she's not actually my girlfriend she anymore. She's my fiance.
Oh wow!
Um,
Congrats, man. That's awesome.
thanks, man. So yeah, but I mean, it's definitely been like it's a rocky thing, like it's like living with somebody with a chronic illness, right? Like it's there. It's no matter what, it's going to be there. And there's going to be long stints where you don't notice it, right? And things are good and the cancer's in remission or whatever it is, like and then there's going to be those times that are really tough and it's really hurting that person a lot and it's like hurting the people around them seeing that person in pain and so it's like I guess mental illnesses are the same thing where it's like all the mental illnesses I have are going to be chronic. Like they're going to last like my whole life. And some of them I'm going to be able to manage, and some of them I'm not going to be able to manage as well. And so like personally, I suffer from like depression, anxiety. I have PTSD, but it's the secondary form. So it's the like emotional, I guess it's a little bit of physical abuse PTSD as well, but it's not on the spectrum. It's not like war, right? But
Right.
it is on the spectrum. Um, and then borderline personality disorder as well, which comes from like abandonment issues with my parents and all these things. And so um, the shitty part is I also still have issues with my family and my me and my dad are kind of estranged a little bit pretty much. And I talk to him every once in a while. Me and my mom, it's a roller coaster and it'll be up and it'll be down. And so it's something that I guess somebody I was talking to recently told me like, when it comes to like your parents as an adult, like you have to love them, but you don't have to like embrace every bad part of them, and
Hmm.
accept that and allow yourself to be around those things. And you can step away now, like you have your own place, you can just drive home. You don't have to stay there and be subjected to like the same abuse or the same traumas or
Hmm.
but I guess when it comes to like me and my fiance, like she is very understanding and very patient and very emotionally mature. And so like, I'm somebody that like I know who I am. I know what I've been through. And so like I guess shown her all the bad and all the good. And I haven't held anything back. It's like this is me at my worst, this is me at my best, and like this is who I am. Like,
Hmm.
the best presentation of who I am. And so I've done that in the past and with other people before, and I've reached a point where they're like, I can't handle this, or like I don't want to be around this, and I'm like, I completely understand. But with her, it was like she did understand, and she still wanted to be around, and I was like, that's kind of how I knew this is the one, like this is the person that because I'm a very loyal person, and I'm never going to give up on like somebody if I decide to spend my life with them. But like I
Having that,
understand if
yeah.
they
I was just say
yeah,
having
like I
that
understand.
reciprocation, it's like validating for sure. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I want to unpack the kind of mental health stuff because I recently had a conversation with one of my best friends in the whole world. I think over the weekend for the podcast, and he mentioned he's going to therapy and dealing with anxiety and depression and things that like this is a person I was in his wedding and something that I had absolutely no knowledge about, and I'm by no means any sort of a professional in this realm. But the one thing that I kind of hope that through these conversations I have with people is the attempt to start normalizing a lot of this shit because this is a
Yeah,
kid
man.
I've known for 20 years, and if we didn't have this discussion, he would never have told me these things. And I think there is all that societal social media presence to put that smile on and shrug along and pretend like everything in your life is perfect. And
Yeah.
it's kind of nice when you have the ability to relate with people about, traumas and tribulations that you're going through that, maybe you don't even feel comfortable telling your best friends with.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I guess I come from a place where it's like my whole life I was told these things are normal, you know? Like I was only told about things that are worse, right? So like I knew in my heart, like, this is not how families run. This is not, like, we're not the worst of the worst, obviously, in the entire world when it comes to emotional abuse or physical abuse, right? Like, I could still walk to school, like, the marks weren't visible, like, you know what I mean? I still have my face, like, in terms of physical abuse, like, that's what my dad always said, like, it's not bad because, like, I got beat way worse than you, and this isn't shit compared to how I got beat. And I'm like, but
Sure.
it's still, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you look it up um and so I guess I was always under the assumption that like my family was completely normal and there was only worse. So every family in the world was exactly like us, except for the families that were much, much, much worse. Um, and that was something that my parents kept telling to me to try to justify their own behavior and what they were doing, and trying to normalize that because they in their heart knew like what I'm doing to this kid is very fucked up. Um, and so it's something that like the reason why I'm so vocal about it, and I'll say the mental illnesses by name, I'll talk about any aspect of it. Like I'm not beating around the bush, I'll just let it out there and tell people everything. Is because I know there's people out there like me that maybe are in a same situation where they're like their family is like this is normal, or like I came from a very affluent family, so you know they would be like, you're sitting in a suite at the Four Seasons in Maui right now, like, how many kids,
Would kill to be
get to
here.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, why are you so sad, But in my heart, like, I sat in the room the whole day in Maui at this beautiful resort, like, telling myself not to jump off the balcony. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like, so it's like, it was this weird like yeah, this weird like you have such a good life on the outside, right? But
Sure.
on the inside and all the fights and all the restaurants we got kicked out of for screaming at each other, and you know what I mean, all the shit, like just constant fighting and animosity and hostile behavior and abuse and putting each other down and low blows, and it's just years and years and years and years of that, like it's not normal. It
Yeah.
was not normal.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
So
Hurt people, right? That's like the thing that I learned after some shitty relationships, and you can chalk it up to family dynamics as well. Their attempt to normalize, obviously the abuse is something that you look back on as an adult as not so fucked up and not right, but as a kid, when it's ingrained to you that this is the norm and I don't have it as bad as everybody else, it allows you to justify their behavior because they're my parents. What do I know any better? It's fucked.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
From 2021 post COVID, well, not post, we're obviously still in it. Obviously there's a lot of things that you have that are going great for you, work, your art. What gives you confidence today? What inspires you? What's like the things that you have going on that you look to and you wake up and you're like, oh, this is so fucking awesome. I get to do this.
Um, like I said, these are like lifelong, illnesses, so or like things that I deal with basically. So like there are moments where I'm more confident than other moments. So
Sure.
I guess there's still, yeah, there's still lots of moments where I'm like not confident in what I'm doing at all. And like I'm living at my sister's apartment right now, and I'm just like living on a mattress on the ground, and like I am supposed to move to Malaysia. I was supposed to move to Malaysia to be with my fiance like in April, but the border hasn't opened yet, so I'm in this limbo period.
Oh, jeez.
So, um, so yeah, so I guess like that's been like I kind of like let go of all my clients because I was gonna move, and I was like I can't do work with you guys after a certain point. So then they like, obviously found other people and things like that to take over the responsibilities that I was doing. And so in the work front, I'm like not confident because I don't know. I have good savings right now, but I don't know what's going to come next. I don't know like how much work I'm going to get in Malaysia or, that kind of stuff. But um, I guess like, I guess what keeps me confident is like the growth, right? Like that's what I think. I think that people focus on work, right, to distract themselves from the things that they don't want to think about themselves
For
or
sure.
about their, their relatives that they have issues with, the relationships they have issues with, things like that. And so, like, the work that I've always put myself into is working on myself. And everyone around me that I went to school with put work externally. Like, I'm going to get good grades. I'm going to go to an Ivy League school. I'm going to work for like Goldman Sachs and, work for an investment banking company and make like 175K like as like a 22-year-old. And a lot of them did that and they accomplished that. But it's funny, like many of them have quit those jobs or moved away,
Sure.
moved back home with their parents and have had coffee with me. And they're like, dude, like, I wish I did what you did, Now I'm behind on myself, but you are so much further ahead in terms of like your maturity and like knowing yourself and working on yourself and working through the things that you don't like about yourself. And so I guess that's what gives me confidence now is whenever I kind of get down or whatever I kind of like start to lose that confidence or lose that drive to keep creating and stuff like that, I always just look back and I'm like, look at where I was here and now look at where I am now. And then multiply that by 10 years. Like now I just need to be patient. Like
Yeah.
nothing gets built overnight. And as long as I'm continuing to make myself a better person, to be better for the people that are around me and that I care about and create things that make me happy and that touch people in a certain way or that's all I'm really trying to do. And so um, as long as you're improving every single day, like that's the main drive. That's what gives me the most drive is like just knowing that tomorrow I can be a better person or I can take a better photo. And if I just keep going, imagine where I'll be in all of these processes like in 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. And yeah, that's I guess what keeps me confident now.
I mean, dude, I mean, talk about an absolutely beautiful answer. I don't think you could have possibly articulated that any better, honestly. And it kind of goes back to like how this, friendship of ours started. You've really built, a fostering community amongst people from an Instagram perspective, which, it's just a social media network. It's just a place where people, share memes and post photos and stuff. But I think that it kind of shows in what you do, and how you've built this community around yourself of people that you like to prop up and share other people's work, and are really giving people, confidence in the stuff that they're doing because you see value in that. And, man, that's super inspirational. And I'm blown away by that answer. That's incredible for sure. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Those are some super kind words. I really appreciate it. And I mean, really, I just consider myself really fortunate. Like a lot of people got followers, got features like in 2016, 2015, 2017, when it was, really a much more organic growth type place, and it
Sure.
wasn't prioritizing ads as much and things like that. And a lot of those people now, I feel like I look at some of those pages and they're like, man, they used to get like 4 or 5,000 likes, and now they're sitting at like 600 likes, and it's like, 2 comments on the photo. And they had this opportunity, they had this massive community of people that they grew, and they didn't add the personal, and they didn't prop other people up, and they didn't like they put themselves on a pedestal instead of staying grounded and staying real and staying
Hmm.
like a real person, and caring about people. And I definitely did that too. Like you were speaking earlier about me following everybody back and things like that. And um, I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I, why am I putting myself up on a pedestal when I'm somebody that I'm not like that in real life?
Hmm.
I haven't ever been like that in real life. And I almost felt like obligated to be like this Instagram persona thing where it's like, I'm not going to post like my food that I ate on my story, like, unless it's like a good photo and like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to be this presence because I'm not Tyler online. I'm firsthand account or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
And so, and that was bullshit. Like, that's not who I am. Like, that wasn't true to who I am. That's not like, people meet me and they're like, dude, you're nothing like how you see him online. And I'm like, man, I hate that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like that at all because I like who I am in person. And so maybe I don't like that person that
No,
I'm
I mean, I can
being
see,
online.
I can see that. And that, again, that goes back to like the confidence thing that I was surprised to hear you say that you like struggle with that because, outward looking in at your stuff, it's just, comes from such a confident place. And, like you said, you've been featured on some huge Instagram accounts. And I know a lot of that stuff doesn't matter, but like as an artist, as a person that's making art, it's validation, right? It's showing that the stuff that you're doing is appreciated by other people, and then when new people
Yeah.
come into your sphere, it's just all validating for the thing that you're doing. I think, and you and I have had this conversation before. Like, it's frustrating for me. Like, I'm not seeing growth on Instagram. I'm not
Yeah.
seeing like the things that like would validate the thing that I love to do, and it's
Yeah.
tough. And some of the conversations that we've had where you're like, listen, man, it's just a number. It doesn't mean shit. Keep doing what you're doing what you love, and eventually it's going to all click. And
Yeah.
I'm doing things now from a photography perspective, like working with models and hopefully brands and stuff in the future that I don't think I would necessarily have gone for had it not been for some of those conversations with you. So, obviously big ups to you, and thank you. Because as shocking as
I'm
it was,
glad, man.
yeah, no, as surprising it was to hear that you do struggle with confidence. It's been a lot of the conversations that you and I have had that have given me the confidence to keep pushing my dream and pushing my skills and my art further. So thank you. You
Yeah. No
recently,
problem, man. That's awesome.
yeah, no problem. You recently came out with your first, I think is your first book, right? Your first zine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the process of putting that together. Obviously, I've got a copy on my desk over there.
Thanks,
Super,
man.
yeah, no, super proud of you for that. That's really fucking awesome. But what was it like putting that together? How did you like, kind of decide what made the cut, what didn't make the cut, and did you have any inspirations of other photo books that you saw that kind of went into putting that together?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess my main inspiration was Matt Day. So Matt Day did his zine Social Distancing, where he just went around Chillicothe, Ohio, in his hometown, and just took black and white photos on film, just of all the empty scenes. And I didn't want to do that book because honestly, I thought that was pretty much a cliche. Even like when we would see these viral images as photographers of like the empty Times Square, and like everyone would comment and be like, yo, how many photo books do you think we're gonna see called like, like
Emptiness.
distancing or
Yeah.
like emptiness or like, the pandemic or like, and I was like, yeah, I mean, it's beautiful, and it's something that we've all been waiting for a very long time, and that we've never seen before, and we've always dreamed of seeing these scenes with nobody in them at all, right? And it's cool, but it's definitely a cliche. It's definitely overdone. It's definitely something that was very obvious to everybody that was in the pandemic. And um, so anyways, nothing against Matt Day because I love Matt Day.
Me too.
I've DM'd him a couple times. He's super nice. I
Yeah.
love his work. Even now, he said he's regretted making that in that exact way. And his next project, he's going to take multiple years to do it, and not have a set deadline, and not be like, I'm going to take photos for 2 months and then just print it.
Sure.
And so in some of his most recent YouTube videos, you can kind of hear that sentiment that he's like, not super proud of that project.
Yeah.
Which is funny because that's how I feel about my zine as well. But
Really?
yeah, but I mean, there's so many photos I absolutely love in that, but there's just a few photos that I look at now and I'm like, maybe I wouldn't have included it if I had more time to think about it.
Hmm.
And so that's all. It's just nitpicking and stuff like that. But same with Matt Days, I think it's kind of the same sentiment. But anyways, I wanted to move to Northeast Minneapolis. It's like this iconic neighborhood in Minneapolis. It's technically the oldest neighborhood in the whole state. So that was like the first neighborhood, like in Minnesota, basically. The oldest bars in the state are there. The oldest restaurant in the state is there. And so, yeah, it's just like this iconic place, lots of old buildings that haven't been torn down or are historically preserved or protected, or the facades are at least protected, which is the most important part in my opinion. Um, and so I just wanted to walk around and shoot all these old houses and these old buildings and the old fire station that's been there forever. And yeah, I just basically started going on walks with my sister and her little French bulldog. And I found, I just find photos wherever I go. So ever since I got the like queue, I pretty much bring it around everywhere with me. And whatever I see, whether it's like a candle on like a table at a restaurant, or, just random stuff that you maybe wouldn't never take a professional photo of, or a photo with a nice camera. Like I just bring it around everywhere and take kind of like Martin Parr type photography, or like Stephen Shore type photography. And yeah, it's just kind of like a subconscious process where I'm not really thinking. I'm just kind of using the subconscious in the mood I'm in, and the things, the light, and like the compositions, and just using the artistic elements and stuff like that subconsciously, and just trying to find things as I walk. And so I was actually taking photos a bunch on these walks. And my sister, I was showing her all the photos because I was super excited about them. And she was actually the one that told me you should make a zine. So
That's awesome.
I didn't even have the idea. She was just like, yo, you should make these into like photo book or something, or like a smaller photo book, like a zine or something like that. And like I said, because I struggle with self-confidence, I was like, I would have never had that idea myself. Like I was eventually going to create a photo book, but not something that quick, or not something that with that type of work in it. Because I just took those photos because I liked them. I didn't really see much value in them past just me liking them.
Hmm.
And so she was the one, yeah, that pushed me to do it. And so after she pushed me, then I started really intentionally taking photos when I walked outside, and kind of trying to, through the subconscious process, like develop like what the project idea is, right? And so I knew I wanted it to be about Northeast Minneapolis. I knew that I wanted it to be about my experience of moving there, and moving there for the first time, and falling in love with the city like firsthand, and spending that time. And at the time, fall was just starting and the leaves were changing. And I was like, wow, this is a great opportunity to show fall in Minneapolis. I'd never seen really, I mean, you see one or two or three like random photos in the fall of like scenes in Northeast Minneapolis or in like more city areas. But most of the photos you see people just go up north to the national park and they shoot like these rolling hills of endless trees that are all changing colors. And that's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a nature person. Like I don't like camping and like
Yeah.
I hate mosquitoes and like I'm not about that life. So
Yeah.
like so I was like, how can I make a book about fall that also fits me and who I am and my work and my style? And so yeah, I decided to make it about Northeast Minneapolis because I saw there was a lot of trees that are also protected here and they can't be cut down. So there's like you'll see like a 150-year-old tree in the middle of someone's front yard and you're like, whoa, like just
It's huge.
giant trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, so that's kind of how the project came to be, and then yeah, I used MagCloud because I really liked the quality for the price. I didn't want it to be super expensive. I wanted it to be like, you know, 15, $20, something that's like, pretty easy for people to buy type thing. I wanted it to be even cheaper than that, but I put too many photos in it. So
Too many pages.
yeah, but yeah, so yeah, I really liked MagCloud for it, and I highly recommend MagCloud to anybody who's looking to make a zine for sure. But
That's really awesome, man. What would you say is the thing that you're like most proud of, from a photography perspective? If it's not your zine, what can you look at and tangibly say, like, this is something that I think is my greatest achievement, the thing I'm most proud of?
yeah, I guess like this is why I tell people to never stop trying new things as an artist because the next thing could be your thing,
I
right?
completely agree. I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you
Yeah,
said that.
yeah. So like Picasso is the perfect example. Picasso was a master of so many different art forms, but he wasn't famous for hyper realistic Renaissance style paintings. But
Hmm.
he could do it.
Sure.
He could paint the Sistine Chapel in the classical style with the classical paints. Like he knew how to mix them. He knew how to use the mediums. Like he knew that, but that wasn't what people know him for, right? If he had never tried cubism, he would have never known like, oh wow, I can really like my cubism shit slaps. Like
Yeah.
basically like like I had no idea. Like it's really well received by the public and it's really viral,
Yeah.
At the time viral wasn't even a thing, but like
The
his work
the
was very viral.
precursor to viral.
Yeah, so yeah, anyways, like there's so many things I've tried and failed at. Street photography is the perfect example where I tried so hard and sometimes I'd go out and just take street photos and I'd fail and fail and fail. And there's only maybe like less than five photos that are street photos that I'm like super proud of after like years of doing it. So it's like, yeah, it's like not a very good hit rate, but
I don't know if it is for you. It also seems like the photos that I think are the most impactful or the most beautiful or the most profound for me are usually the least liked photos on not that you post. Like, because
oh,
I've got
definitely.
some like heavy images. Like I've got one that's in my mind right now. It's like a homeless person with their cart and just their legs sticking out behind them, which I think is just like such a haunting image. It's in the subway. People are just walking by and there's this person there. And I took this image and it's like, I shoot with an M6. It's perfect, sharpness. It's just like my best photo. I know it is. And
Yeah.
like nobody ever likes it. And I'm like, well, motherfuckers, this is the thing I love the most. And at the same time, when someone asks you like, oh, what's your favorite photo? My answer is always hopefully the next one. Like the thing that
Yeah.
drives me most is going out and making more images. And that's why
A
I
hundred
love that
percent.
you said that.
Yeah, 100%. And just piggybacking off that real quick before I get back to the question, like I was in a clubhouse room the other day and the clubhouse was called What's Your Bucket List Shot, right? And everybody was like, "Oh, Northern Lights, Iceland," or somebody else was like sky like a Milky Way photo in the desert of like this one place in the Middle East and I was like, "Wow, yeah, for sure." My answer was that my bucket list shot was whatever photo gets me to the next part of my career. So I don't know what my bucket list photo is right now, but I know that it might be a photo I already took. It might be a photo that I'm going to take someday. But whatever photo or series of work that I create that gets attention from the people that I want
Hmm.
to get attention from, the people that could change my life overnight, from who I am now to speaking, presenting, gallery shows, selling artwork to collectors, like prominent in the collector market, like making a living, a good living, like that type of change your life, right? And
Yep.
that's my ultimate dream for sure. And so that was my bucket list shot. So I completely agree. Like your next photo could be your next, could be that bucket list photo, could be that best photo type thing. Um, but yeah, going back to the original question, I guess something that I'm I guess more proud of, or one of the only things I guess I'm proud of in my photography, um, is these photos that I've been taking this past winter. And the funny part is I don't even share the best stuff, like the
Oh,
stuff that, yeah. So what I post on my Instagram is stuff where I'm like, that doesn't fit in any series I'm doing or any photo book or any
print.
like print or like, and there's a few of them that are like, I just love everything about them. Like the slide photo that I
Oh,
posted.
yeah. Fucking love that
Yeah,
one.
that's like
Yeah.
one of my favorite photos I've ever taken. So I definitely let those out still, the good
Yeah.
ones. But most of them are like, I have five different angles of one scene, and the ones that I like, but they're not like the one. Those are usually the ones that I share on Instagram. So the one I still have for a lot of those locations I went to, like the my favorite one, I still have in my archive. But this work that I've been creating in the winter has really like been, I guess, the thing that I'm most proud of. It's my first attempt at like creating more like a painter versus like a photographer, where it's like, you know, like my like Francis Bacon, Norman Rockwell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that type of where it's like
Intention.
they're using. Yeah, there's a lot of intention, but it's subconscious intention, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like Francis Bacon is a little more obvious where you just look at this disfigured face and you're like, wow, the pain
Mm-hmm.
and like scream and just the emotion, like you feel all of it, right? A more abstract way is like Norman Rockwell, right? Where it's literally like maroon on red. It's a maroon blob, square, rectangular blob on top of a red painting. And so it's just two shades of red. But the more you sit there, the more you feel his loneliness and his depression and his sadness and his and all of these kind of undertone themes. And so my new work, or like my most recent work, has been my first attempt at trying to take like all of my traumas and all the things that I feel all the time and trying to put those into an art form without being very obvious about it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like there's an artist I like that makes pieces from sleep apnea nightmares that he has.
Oh shit.
Um, but they're very obvious, right? Like he's literally trying his hardest to depict what he saw in the dream very specifically. So like him with a bag over his head drowning in the creek while people watch him, like that type of, you know what I mean? Like the it's a very obvious or literal expression of what that dream was, right?
Right.
I'm trying to, I guess, take a more abstract painter's approach to photography in that I'm trying to take a photo of a slide that feels sad, that feels lonely, that feels isolated, that feels peaceful at the same time as well. Like I find peace in exploring all these places by myself and being able to drive anywhere I want. Like to this day, that still gives me butterflies in my stomach, that I am not grounded, that I can, like, if I want to go see something, if I want to go like to a location or to like an amusement park, or I want to just do anything, right? And I have a free day, I can get in my car and do whatever I want. I'm an adult. It's my money. It's my choice. That still to this day is like such a liberating and exciting and happy feeling for me. I almost feel like a kid that's like, oh, I get to go to Disney World today, you know? Like it's that kind of feeling for me. And so, um, kind of, yeah, this most recent work, trying to put all of those emotions of like my depression, my isolation, and me feeling disconnected from the world, but also trying to put like the happy sides of it as well, and the fact that I'm at peace now and that I'm like happy exploring these scenes, and that these scenes bring me a lot of healing and meditation and calm that I didn't have when I was a kid, right? Like being in a house that was all you could always hear screaming, and now, you know, when I took a photo of that slide, it was like no one was out. Not even a car was out because there was so much snow on the ground and they hadn't plowed any of it because it was an overnight blizzard. And so in Minnesota, when it's an overnight blizzard, the plows don't come out till 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. So until then, no one drives, like unless you want to like brave it and just drive through all the snow like I do. But no one's out. So it's like it was completely silent. Like you could hear a pin drop. Like it was just so silent. And in combination with no bugs because of the winter and no cars, no no nothing. There was no wind that night either. It was a very calm night. And so just sitting in that silence is also something that's soothing to me because I didn't have a quiet place, you know, I didn't have a place that I felt safe. And so that's kind of all of the emotions that I'm trying to put into this work. But like, I didn't think it was going to be successful. Like, I thought I pretty much went into it like my likes are going to drop to like 100 likes a photo. Like, I don't care what people think of this. Like, this is something that's me, and that is 100% me and who I am and what I went through and how I feel. And I don't care what people think of it. And I'm just glad it was received well, that the messaging that I wanted to put in there, people read that messaging.
Yeah.
And I don't have to say anything. I don't have to write it in the caption, like, this is how you're supposed to feel. People can just look at a photo of a slide and feel peace, but also lonely.
Hmm.
And that to me is like mind blowing. Like I did not expect it to work. So I guess I'm proud of
I
that.
think I
But
think the authenticity in which you come to these images and the place that you derive these feelings from, it comes out in your photo work for, for anyone to see. And it's probably why it has been as well received and as, acceptable as it is. And it's like the exact opposite. I would imagine it's some of your most liked work, your most shared work. It's beautiful.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that too. And um yeah, I don't know. It's something where like I've always felt threatened by other artists, if that makes any sense. Like, oh, someone else can just go to that spot and take a better photo at a better sunset of the skyline, right? The skyline's always going to be there. The sun's always going to be there for however many billion years until it explodes. Um, but these things are constant, right? So like I always had this like feeling that I'm like I could be replicated, I could be replaced with something better, right?
Hmm.
And this is, I guess, like when I watched all these documentaries about painters and about these distinguished artists and stuff like that, they were never scared of that because they're like, what I do, no one can do except for me. And I never understood what they were saying. And it wasn't that they had a technical mastery that no one could achieve, because anyone in the world can spend as much time painting as they do to get to the same place, to get to the same mastery of the same styles, of the same techniques. And so the physical process is always replicatable, but the emotional, the mental, the subconscious, those things are unique to everybody. Everybody has their own sensitivity to emotion, and like some things will affect them more than others. And no one is identical when it comes to how they think, how they feel, how things make them feel, how traumas resurface later, or like whether they know about those traumas, don't know about those traumas. It's like a rabbit hole when it comes to mental health and introspection and knowing yourself. And yeah, so it's just like now I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't think that people could do exactly what I do in the way that I do it because I am who I am, you know?
Hmm.
Like they could do something similar and I would love it, but it wouldn't be identical.
Sure.
And so
I think a lot
yeah, I
of
don't know.
yeah, I think a lot of what you just said makes me think about when I'm doing photography or I'm on a podcast, that imposter syndrome that I feel at times when I'm trying to do the thing that I love and I really enjoy. But at times it's easy for you to feel like a fraud. Like, who am I to go walk the streets of New York and say I'm a street photographer? Who am I to start a
Yeah.
podcast and say that I'm a podcast host? And I think the biggest lesson that I've learned, and I'm 5 years older than you, so I'm a bit older. You learn lessons as they come in life. It's the
Hmm.
ability to just take the thing that you love and keep doing it. And it doesn't really matter what people tell you. Like, I don't need all my friends to text me and say, dude, I listened to your podcast. It was fucking amazing. Or that picture you took was so beautiful, because I do it for me. If other people
Yeah.
are positively impacted by the things that I do that I love, great. But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's like trying to avoid that, fraud label that I give myself all the time that it will ultimately help me grow the most as a person.
Yeah, definitely, man. And yeah, I'm obviously I struggle from that as well. Like I've now only just reached a point where I'm like, I am going to introduce myself as like an artist and a photographer. Like not just a photographer, not a photographer slash videographer, not like, oh, I own my own media company. Like it's just I'm an artist and I use photography and that's like my medium right now. Because the medium might change. Like
Sure.
I know that's what the process that I'm supposed to be doing. And so, um, yeah, but it's definitely hard. It's so hard. And like when you come to situations where like it's easy to say that in front of people, a room full of people that aren't artists, right? But
Sure.
then you're in a room full of artists and you're like, oh, I'm an artist. And you're like, there's other artists that are way more experienced, way more distinguished, way more. And they're like, you are an artist? Like, I'm an artist. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, fuck. Like, I'm not, no, I just take photos. Like, I'm just a nobody. Like, I just take photos.
Oh, I know that feeling
But
well. Yeah, I think like at the end of the day, like you just touched on something that's super important. It's like I try my best not to compare my story with anybody else's. And
yeah,
my journey to where I'm at as an artist is completely unique to me and completely unique to you. And like it's easy to get caught up in the likes and the follows and the shares and all that shit that doesn't mean anything. But I relate so much to that. Being in a room of photographers, like, oh, what do you do? I'm a photographer.
yeah,
But yeah, I totally feel that. Tyler, obviously we've been on the line for about an hour now, and I want to try to wrap things up in just a bit. But for someone who's never heard you speak before or been introduced to you before, a lot of what we touched on is some heavy shit, and obviously we try to make brevity and light of a lot of real factors in life and mental illness. But if someone you don't know is listening to this podcast right now, 15-year-old, 35-year-old, 50-year-old, whoever it might be, what's like one piece of advice that you can give someone that's hearing you talk for the first time, just navigating, their own trauma, their own tribulations that they're, sitting in today?
yeah. I mean, it's I know it's such a cliche, but like time heals everything, and time is your greatest resource ever. Like, screw money. Like, I don't care if I have money. I don't care if I know 100,000 people. I don't care if I have 100 properties around the world. If I have time, that's all I care about, honestly, time and happiness. And so just be patient. And I know that's such a cliche and it's so hard in the moment to believe that, right? It's like you can only be proven it. Like I said that's bullshit until time proved me wrong. And I was like, okay, wow. Like I actually am way less sad thinking about these things 7, 10 years later, than I was back then for sure. And so just keep trying, keep working, keep one step, one foot in front of the other. Like just take one step every day. It doesn't have to be a leap. It doesn't have to be a jump. You don't have to be skipping rings on the ladder. You don't have to piggyback, someone else and try to get over it. Like there's no shortcuts, right? Just one day at a time, take one day at a time and focus on tomorrow and just realize that most of the things that are worth earning or worth going through or worth like growing from doesn't happen quickly ever. So just, yeah, I guess be patient in the process and know that no matter how depressed you are, no matter how anxious you are, whatever, that will not affect you in the same way forever. And it will get better with time and it will get better with working on it. But time also just in itself will make it a lot easier. Like eventually you'll be like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I've been dealing with this for too long. And then you just won't deal with it anymore. Like you'll be like, I'm just going to go to the grocery store alone. Like I don't care. Like I know it's going to make me anxious, but at this point, it's been years of this, and I'm just sick of it at this point,
Yeah,
So sometimes you
absolutely,
just got
man.
to wait it out and keep working on yourself until you reach that point where you're like, yeah, fuck this. I don't really want to be affected by it anymore.
Yeah,
But
I'm completely with you. I mean, it goes without saying that this has been one of the best conversations for sure that I've had on my podcast, probably in my life. Really introspective, really inspirational hearing where you've come from, where you're going, what you have in front of you. I count you as a friend, obviously, and you're a true
Definitely.
inspiration from an artist perspective, man. And this has been an absolutely beautiful conversation. I like to wrap up all my podcasts with just a recommendation. Could be a book that I'm reading, a movie, TV show, something that I saw, literally, lip gloss, whatever the fuck it might be. What's one recommendation you have for the audience out there today?
So I always kind of recommend the same person. It's one of my biggest inspirations, whose name is Alex Soth. So he's a photographer based out of Minnesota, and he uses a lot of subconscious processes to create his photo series. So if you're trying to learn more about like how I create work, how he creates work is very similar to how I create work. So, and his work is incredible, like so amazing. So Alex Soth.
Sweet. We'll link them up in the notes below. My recommendation, I'm sure you've seen this. It's a documentary that I bought, Finding Vivian Maier. It is so
Yeah.
fucking good. I watched it again for like the sixth time last night. It's just an
Yes.
incredibly awesome documentary. I love documentaries, and just watching that film is so inspirational on like a person who was in their own world, really just so far out there doing something so religiously day in and day out, taking absolutely beautiful street photos, documentary style photography, and I'm sure you've seen it. It's just incredible.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen it about six times
Yeah,
as well myself.
it's so
Just
fucking
gets
good
better every time you watch it.
for sure.
Find something different.
Absolutely. Dude, Tyler, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. It goes without question that sometime down the line, we're going to have episode number 2. I thoroughly enjoyed this chat with you, and look forward to doing it again. And take care, man, and happy birthday.
Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you having me on, and yeah, it was a pleasure to talk to you. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Sounds good, buddy. Be well.
You too, man.